Hi guys, how are you guys doing? I hope all of you are staying home, staying safe, and are doing absolutely amazing. A very warm welcome to the second session of the chapter Location, Extent, and Physical Features. Would love to hear from you all if the first session helped you or not. Did you like the first session or not? So make sure you're telling it to me about it in the comment section, okay? And also guys, remember whatever questions, whatever doubts comes to your mind, remember to put it in the comment section so that we are able to take it and solve it during the doubt and the mentee session. Okay, and let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Ankana, your master teacher for social sciences at Vedantu, and without spending and wasting any more time, let's quickly get started. So we were talking about the physical geography of India. So we have already finished talking about the location, how it is placed, what are the neighboring countries, how does it look internally in terms of the water bodies that surrounds the country, and also about the extent, like how the longitudinal, the latitudinal extent, right from the north to the south, the southernmost point, northernmost to the southernmost point, easternmost to the westernmost point, all of the extent of India and what are the different you can say features of the country. Now today we are going to talk about the physical geography of India, the physical division of the country, what are the different features per se that the country has. Now before I move to that, I would like to know what is the official name of the country. We discussed about this in the previous session. Quickly put it in the comment box, your responses, not in the live chat guys, because it gets a little difficult for me to get your responses in the live chat. Remember, put it in the comment section after the session gets over. Okay, chalo. So let's talk about the physical features of India, which means what are the different physical divisions that India as a country has. So India is diverse not just in culture but also in terms of physical features. Not all the countries in the world would have so many dimensions in terms of physical features, but India has, and it has basically everything, and we can divide it in 5 parts. Okay, the Great Plains of Ganga or Indus. So basically, we start with the Himalayas, okay, the Great Himalayan Mountains. Then are the Great Plains of Ganga or Indus. You can see basically the plain region, the northern plains. Then we have the peninsular plateaus, the coastal plains, and the islands. However, the deserts are also a part of it. Not every country has plains, coastal plains, islands, and deserts and everything, but we are going to speak about these 5 major features of the country. Now, apart from that, you might be thinking, ma'am, okay, this is fine, but what are these? So let's move ahead and talk about each of these physical feature of the country in details. Let's begin with Himalayas. So, bacha, Himalayas, basically the entire range runs for a very long, range. I mean, like long distance. So the length is so huge that it has been divided depending on certain reasons in 3 major parts, in 3 major ranges. The first one is known as Northwest Range, the second is known as the Great Northern Himalayas, and third one is the Northeastern Himalayan Range. As the name speaks for itself, western part would be towards where the Himalayas begin in the northern side, then the greater northern Himalayas would be the middle range, and then when you move to the east it's known as Northeastern Himalayan Range. So let's talk more about Northwest Himalayan Range. Now before I actually move forward, I would quickly like to draw your attention over here. So as you can see, this part over here guys, this part over here will be your northern northwest range. Okay, then somewhere in between here is the Great Northern Himalayas, and this is the western range that we were talking about. However, all of this is in north, so we are not we are not saying we are not referring it to as other thing by any other name. So let's focus over here. It's a series of mountain ranges from Pamir Knot known as the roof of the world. So you can see this is the Pamir Knot, right? and it starts from here. That's where the series of the mountain starts from. Okay, and this actually is it has multiple ranges over there, multiple mountain ranges over there. So you can see the Hind Kush, Kulun, Karakoram, Ladakh and Zaskar. Ladakh and Zaskar is right here. Then you have the Kulun over here, and here is Karakoram. So you can see right from here it begins, goes here till here and ranges up to here. That is the northwest range of the Himalayas. Then we move to the great northern Himalayas. Now it runs in a form of an arc, okay, from Kashmir till Assam. Now what is an arc? Arc, you might have read earlier, arc is nothing else but a part of a circle, which means it somewhat forms a circular kind of shape. So it starts right from here in Kashmir and goes up till Assam till here, as I told you. Okay, you can see the great Himalayas marked over here. And you can also notice the circular kind of formation that it's forming, right? It looks like a part of a bigger circle. So that's the arc that we are referring to. Okay, so this arc, the western limit is known as Nanga Parbat and the eastern limit is known as Namcha Barwa. Okay, and it comprises of 3 distinct ranges. So as we saw different ranges in the western part of the Himalayas, in the western northwestern range, similarly this one has 3 different ranges of its own. And this is very interesting because these 3 ranges are actually parallel to each other. So imagine drawing 3 parallel lines, and these 3 parallel lines will all be different ranges, which will be Himadri, Lesser Himalayas and Shivalik. And how it starts is Himadri is on the top. Then you have the Lesser Himalayas and Shivalik being the more southern part, which is more closer to the country in terms of that. Okay, so and this part also forms the Indus and the drainage system. If you talk about the river system, it has is the Indus and the Brahmaputra, which we will discuss in detail later. Okay, in the drainage system. So as I was telling you that the first part is Himadri. So if you look at the diagrams, guys, this first part, bacha, as you can see, this is the great Himalayas. Okay, then here is the lesser Himalayas and this is the Shivaliks. So the great Himalayas is basically Himadri. Why? Because it has most of the highest mountain ranges. Mount Everest, everyone knows, is the highest mountain peak. It is right there in the Himadri part, and it also has the Siachen glacier that is found there. Siachen, I know, is a very common term. We have heard a lot about it because of various reasons. Find out more about it. It's very interesting. So it has, Himadri is the part which contains the Mount Everest and the Siachen glacier that is found there. Then the second part, as you can see, the second bar, the second stretch comes off the lesser Himalayas. Now it has ranges like Pir, Panjal, Doladhar, Masuri, Kashmir Valley, etc. are located here in the lesser Himalayas. What are the rivers that flows through it? So the major attraction that it has is Jhelum and Dal Lake, which is in Jammu and Kashmir, which is very famous. It's a huge tourist attraction and people love to be there. And you might have also seen it in various movies. So then the third one is the Shivalik range. Now what is Shivalik range? So as I told you, it is the outermost range of Himalayas, which is the southernmost and towards the country. Okay, you can see over here the third one. Okay, the third one that ranges right here is the Shivaliks. Okay, the southernmost, the outermost region. Now these starts in the these are Jammu hills in Jammu, Miri, Abor and Mishri in Arunachal Pradesh, and Dhang range, Dundrara and Churya Ghats in hills in Nepal. So basically Shivaliks has different names in different regions. It's basically the whole stretch is Shivaliks only, but in different ranges we know it for different know it as different names. As I told you, in Jammu it's called Jammu Hills. However, in Nepal it would be known as some other range, right? And in Arunachal Pradesh we known as Abor and Mishri. So this is basically all a stretch of the same range, but known as different parts and different ranges. So if you ever hear about it with different name, don't get confused. It's basically a part of the Shivaliks only. Okay, so So then we move to the next part, which is the Northeast Himalayan range or Purvanchal. This is also known as Purvanchal. Now these are series of hills which run right from Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Assam and Mizoram. They consist of Patkai Bam, Naga Hills in the north, Mizo Hills in the northwest, Garo, Khasi, Jayantia and Naga Hills in the center. Now these were something we were also supposed to learn in the topography sheets. However, hills like Garo and Khasi have been now removed from our syllabus. If you don't know about this, I have done already a video on that. You are quickly supposed to go back to that video and watch it. Okay, now Himalayas is considered to be the more is like an asset for us. Okay, it's very important in terms of geographical feature. And why is that? The reason why Himalayas form such an important feature of the country, I mean, like they become so important for us, the significance is the way it influences the climate. Had the Himalayan range not been there, the monsoon winds would have maybe escaped the, the monsoon scenario of the country would have been completely different, because the monsoon winds actually hit Himalayas and then come back to the country, and that defines the whole monsoon cycle of India. But that would have been completely different if not for Himalayas, and maybe then the country wouldn't have had such a great agricultural production. Okay, then of course for defense purposes, if you remember, I told you that there are different kind of boundaries, for your man-made, for your natural, and Himalayas for us act as the natural boundaries with most of the northern countries, and that is what acts in our defense by the nature, and that's why we're saying that it also is a great defense for us. Then of course the sources of rivers, as I told you, the Siachen glacier, or for that matter so many rivers. The entire northern river system is actually formed by Himalayas. I mean, like all of them get originated from there, and those are the perennial rivers, guys. We'll get to know about this more in detail as we move ahead, but the Himalayas is a great source of river or water in the country. Without that, it would have been very difficult for us. Then of course the fertile soil. So if river is there, water is there, the fertility will be there. But I have a very interesting fact that you would love to know, which is a connection between mountains, plains and rivers and the fertility, which I will tell you. So stay tuned in the end of the session, towards the end actually. Hydroelectricity, electricity being produced with the water energy. Now that happens when water is at a certain height, and we need a lot of water for that, and Himalayas add a great support to that in producing hydroelectricity for the country. Then of course forest wealth, terraced farming, tourism and minerals goes unsaid, right? So forest, I mean, because of the mountains, there's so much of forest that it gives us everything that you have from forest. Terraced farming. What is terraced farming? I want you to find this out. I will give you a small hint. It's basically multi-layered farming on the lands. Find more about it and tell me in the comment box what do you mean by terraced farming. We have already done in the previous classes. Then tourism. Mountains is always an attraction for tourism. Mountains, beaches, a few things that attracts tourists a lot. So of course that's there. And minerals. Now where are these minerals coming from and why are they there in the Himalayan mountains? I will tell you when I will explain you the concept of why plains are so fertile moving ahead. Okay, then comes the Great Plains of North India. So before we talk about the Great Plains of North India per se, let's understand what are plains. So plains are basically, guys, they are flat or sweeping land masses. So you can just imagine it as flat land. Okay, they are flat land and they do not change their elevation much like mountains, or we will also get to know other elevated form of land which is plateaus ahead. Plains are just flat lands. Plains, as the name suggests, it's basically plain form land mass. Okay, and it doesn't change much in elevation. It kind of remains constant throughout its stretch. Okay, now what happens, it's basically lowlands when in front of the valleys. Valleys are where near the mountains, right? The mountains have the valleys, and it basically acts as a lowlands along the valley. So valleys go at an elevation and the plains go side by side as the lowlands over there. You can also say that it is the doorstep to the mountains, like the door is there which opens to the mountains. Okay, now this is basically located to the south of Himalayas and north of peninsular India. If you remember, I told you Tropic of Cancer divides the country in two halves. The second half is more peninsular in formation because it has water everywhere. However, we take the entire country as peninsula. So if you look at where the plains are, it starts from the southern part, okay, the southern part of the mountain. So this is the mountain and this is the southern part, and you can see the northern plains marked over here. So right from the foothills, okay, where the southern where the mountains end, the southern foot of it starts from here, and this is where the peninsular region starts. You can see the Tropic of Cancer right here. So from here till here, this part is actually falling under the Himalayas. Okay guys, now there are it basically forms the northern plains. Now the northern plains have been further divided in regional divisions. Now what do we mean by regional divisions? So plain is actually at a stretch, and you will get to know when we read about the river system further that why is that at a stretch. However, it is known in different names depending upon the different regions. For example, in Rajasthan, the same plain is known as Rajasthan plain. Then it forms the Indus Punjab Haryana plain near that Haryana and Punjab region. When you move towards the eastern side, where you have the Ganga and the Brahmaputra flowing, you have the Ganga plain and the Brahmaputra plain. Then let's talk about the peninsular plateau. Now what is peninsular? Peninsular, as I told you, peninsula is basically a landmass which is surrounded by water on its three sides. But in India, the peninsular region actually has plateau. Now what are plateaus? So plateaus are basically flat, okay, they're flat just like plains, but they're elevated like mountains. So you can see it's a landmass, it's a formation of a landmass which is somewhere between plains and mountains. So plateaus are flat elevated lands. Now where does it lie in our country? Somewhere in the peninsular region, the triangular that we have, okay, and that is why this is also triangular in shape. Now it starts right from the southern edge of the Ganga plain. We saw where the Ganga plain was, right? If I go back to this picture, you can see that this part is the Ganga plain. So it starts somewhere here in the southern part and then goes down here and in an inverted triangular shape, okay, the southern part being its base and the apex, the point, being near the Kanyakumari in the south, okay. So it's located to the southern edge of the Ganga plain, goes down in a triangular shape, and the apex is formed by Kanyakumari in south. If you look here, so I will quickly tell you where is the plateau. This part over here is actually plateau. You can also see it on page number 98 of your book. It's there, a picture in the maps is given over there where mountains, plateaus and it's highlighted, plains are highlighted in your book. Okay, now let's talk about the coastal plain. So what are coastal plain, bacha? So coastal plains are basically the narrow strip, okay, it's very narrow, it's not very broad like the plains or the plateaus. It doesn't stretch in terms of breadth. However, the length is 6,000 kilometers. And how is it 6,000 kilometers is very interesting. I'll show it to you in a minute. So let's talk about what are narrow coastal strips. So basically these are the places, these are the region between the coast, the water bodies and the peninsular plateau. So as I told you, this part is the plateau, okay, which means the edges are left and this is where the water bodies are. So this narrow strip between this plateau in the center and this the water bodies here is known as the coastal region. Okay, now this starts right from here, from the run of Kutch in west starts from here, and this entire part goes up till here, till Ganga Brahmaputra delta in the east, and that is why you can see it stretches right from here. Otherwise you would be thinking, ma'am, the breadth and the width in itself is somewhere like 3,000 approximately. How will the length of the coastal region be 6,000? So this is how it becomes 6,000, bacha. It covers the entire edge of the country. Right from here it stretches up till here, and this entire part is known as coastal plain. Because why? It's simple. So also guys, although this is a coastal region, but it is like a plain, like the northern plain, and that's why we are saying that it's coastal plain. Okay, now coastal plain is another reason which kind of adds on to the economy, just like the Himalayas, just like the mountains. Why? Because beaches are an attraction for tourists, right? And it plus on top of that, it helps us to boost economy in terms of trading, that it enhances through water, a lot of other things, fishing and a lot of other, it increases the employment in terms of different job opportunities that exists in these regions because of water bodies being there. Okay, so let's now move to the next part. So what is its significance? As I was telling telling you. So it has a very fertile soil. Water is right there, water bodies are right there. So obviously the soil has to be fertile. Then of course port cities, as I told you, it helps us in trade and transportation and everything. Then there are large deposits of mineral oil, because sea has everything. And then fishing, production of salt, etc. These are the reasons why coastal plains become very, very important for us. Then is the next feature, which is the islands. Now what are islands? So India has several groups of islands spread around, which comes under the stretch of the country, which falls under the region of the country. But what are islands? So islands are basically land masses which are surrounded by water on all sides. Guys, don't get confused. Peninsula and islands are different. Peninsula is a land mass which is surrounded on three parts. One part would be land. Okay, one side would be land, like India over here. So if you see, this is surrounded by water only on three sides. This part is land. However, this Sri Lanka is an island because it is surrounded by water on all the sides. So similarly, we have few groups of islands, Sri Lanka, Andaman and Nicobar, islands of Bay of Bengal, Lakshadweep and Maldives, islands of Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean. Okay. Now let's move. So we are done with the physical divisions of India. We have covered mountains, we have covered plains, we have covered plateaus, we have spoken about the coastal plains, and we have spoken about the islands as well. Let's talk about the drainage system now. Now it doesn't mean the same as it sounds. Drainage doesn't mean the disposal of the dirty water that we have, the drainage system, but the drainage system actually means the river system of the country. Okay, so what is the river system? If you look at, India is blessed with many rivers across. Okay, we have so many large systems of rivers as well as small systems of river everywhere here and there, which helps us a lot in boosting everything that is water dependent, like irrigation, navigation, industrial and domestic purposes, and of course hydroelectricity, which we just spoke of few minutes back. Now the entire river system in India is actually divided in two parts, which is the northern plains and the peninsular India. As you know, somewhat with the Tropic of Cancer, these two divisions happen, but that's not the only reason. The difference between the nature of these two rivers is very, very different. Okay, the northern ones basically most of them originate from Himalayas, which makes it snow-fed and perennial in nature. However, the ones in the southern side are non-perennial, most of them, and also are dependent on monsoon. Though the country has great monsoon cycle and is properly fed by rain, but it sometimes still is perennial. What do we mean by perennial and non-perennial? So guys, perennial are rivers which are flowing throughout the year and is not dependent on monsoon, or it does not go dry at any part of the year. However, now non-perennial rivers are rivers which at least one part of the year will be dry. It doesn't mean that there will be no water, but because it depends on the monsoon, there will be a point where the water level goes really, really low and it will almost be dry, you could say. Okay, so that's a major difference between the northern plains river and the southern and the rivers in the peninsular region. However, we'll talk more about the difference and we'll do a proper compare and contrast at the end of the session, towards the end. Let's talk about the three major river systems that we have in the northern part of India. So we start with Indus River. So Indus River is actually the largest river system in the entire world. In the entire world, it's the largest, guys. That's so fascinating. So it has multiple tributaries. Now, a question might come into your head if you don't remember it from your previous sessions or classes. I mean, ma'am, what are tributaries? So guys, tributaries are basically small rivers. Okay, not exactly small rivers, if you would understand. It could be small streams which actually gets added onto the main stream. Okay, now as the student, I used to think that it actually goes out of the mainstream, which means there is a big river flowing and small rivers are coming out of it. However, that's not the case. These are small rivers which are already there. They come and join the larger river, which we also know as the mainstream or the main river. Okay, so it doesn't directly flow into the ocean on its own. These rivers don't go and join the ocean directly. Instead, what they do, they come and join these bigger rivers, forming its tributaries, and then the bigger river goes and join the ocean. So Indus River has multiple tributaries like Jhelum. If you remember, we also spoke about this with the Himalayan while we were discussing the Himalayan ranges. I need you to quickly tell me where is Jhelum. I just told you. So Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Satluj are few tributaries of the Indus River system. Then we have the Ganga River system. I think this is one of the rivers which we are most familiar with, because also because of its religious importance that we have in few of the in one of the religion. And apart from that, also because there have been so many controversies related to it, there was another committee set up to clean the entire river. So Ganga, for one or the other reason, have always been in the news, right? And that's why it's one of the main rivers, and one of the main rivers of the entire system. Few of the main rivers of the entire system is Ganga, Yamuna, Gomti, Ghagra, Gandak and Kosi, which from the north, and then towards a little southern south we have Chambal, Damodar, Betwa and Son from the southern side. This entire, you can imagine how many rivers are coming together and forming this entire system of the river Ganga river system. Then the third one is the Brahmaputra system. Now this is interesting and fascinating. Why? Because it is the longest drainage system in the world. Now you see, we have the largest and the longest drainage system right here in India, and that's why I was telling you that our country is actually blessed with a lot of rivers when it comes to that, be it small or larger rivers. So one of the longest rivers in the world, the entire system, is Brahmaputra system. Now it starts right from Tibet, then flows in here and then goes to Bangladesh from India. So you can imagine, if I take you back to the map over here, it starts somewhere in the Tibet. Okay, it starts in Tibet, and from there it comes here in in India and then goes to Bangladesh. Okay bacha, so this is how it flows. And what are the rivers which is a part of it, you'll get to know. Now it is called Sangpo in Tibet. So because it starts in Tibet, it has a different name over there, and again when it goes into Bangladesh it might have a different name. It sounds interesting. Find it out. If you think there's a different name that the river has, do tell me in the comment box. And it is known as Brahmaputra in the Indian region. So the moment it enters India near Sadia, it is known as Brahmaputra. Okay, now let's talk about the rivers in the peninsular India, which is the southern part. Okay, the peninsular plateau which we were telling. So in that part we have multiple rivers. Let's talk about that. So as I told you, these are non-perennial rivers, which means they are not snow-fed, they are dependent on monsoon, and they may go dry in one part of the year. Okay, so they are monsoon dependent, and on western coasts rivers form estuaries, and on the eastern coasts they form delta. Now what is estuary and delta, I'll tell you within a minute. Let's look at the important rivers first. So Mahanadi, Narmada, Tapi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri are few of the rivers which are very important. Okay, so now this is the most interesting part which I was telling you guys to stay tuned for. So guys, we're going to understand in detail what are estuaries, what are deltas, why the lands and plains are fertile, why there are so many minerals in Himalayas. So let's start from the beginning. So Himalayas, do you know how were Himalayas formed? So basically imagine there were two plates, okay, which kind of they went together. They kind of had head on head, they banged against each other and then gave birth to Himalayas, the great range of Himalayas. But it's not just that. Most of the mountains in general is formed due to volcanic eruption, and then that lava dries up and forms the mountains. Now as a result of all these things, or if there is a landmass which erupts all of a sudden because of the plates because they collide with each other, if it's happening because of that, either of the reason, the land masses are going up. Now where are the minerals found in earth? If we discuss about that, where are minerals generally found? They are below the surface. Now in either of the cases, the mountains are being formed because of the eruption or the uprising of these mountain of these land and going into a elevated structure. So obviously all the minerals that was there under the surface is now going there into those mountains, and that's why the mountains are so rich in minerals. So that's how we know why minerals are there in the Himalayan ranges as well. But then what does happen to the plains? Why are they so fertile? So I'm starting right from the beginning. So now I know that these mountains are very rich in minerals. My snow-fed rivers, the perennial rivers, are now starting from there. So when they rush through, and they're at an elevation, okay, they're at a certain height, which means when they fall down, when they come down, it will be coming at a great speed. Anything which goes at a great speed carries a lot of things along with it. So does the rivers there on the mountains. Now these land surface of the mountains are very rich in minerals. So these lands are cutting it off, that land, and because it's also flowing at a very high speed, it's bringing all those minerals. Now the moment it reaches the plains, the speed slows down. Okay, in the mountains they were very less, they were very confined, okay, did not had a lot of space to stretch out. So they were flowing very fast in a comparatively narrow stream. Now they came down in the plains, and all of a sudden it's plain, it's not elevated, and it's very broad, and there's no much elevation. It slows down. The speed from high to low is great, and then it's a plain land, so it slows down. As a result of this, they also spread out, okay, because in the mountains they were very narrow. Now they're getting a lot of space to spread out. Now they're spreading out, so all the silt, minerals, everything that they were carrying from those mountains, they're getting a chance to drop it down there in the plains. Okay, so they've brought new fresh minerals. Now also what happens, because they're going very slow, they're constantly washing the old silt that was already there in the plains. This is the result of which, I mean, like, as a result of this, the lands in the plains are so fertile, and that's why you would see that the entire northern plain majorly is engaged in agriculture, because the land is so fertile. And now we understand why is the land so fertile, because the mountains, the rivers from the Himalayas are coming with all the silt and everything which they are depositing in the plains, and they're washing out the old silt as well, which is making the land renewed every time, and hence more and more fertile. So the fertility is always and always constant. Okay, now what are estuaries and delta? So as they move further, and while they're about to join, the sea or the ocean, whatever, the bigger water body, what happens? There are two things that happens. So bacha, when there is a lot of space, okay, then what happens? There are root like formations there near the sea, near the mainstream. So what happens? Because the land is very broad, the river will keep spreading out. As a result of this, it breaks in smaller streams, as you can see here in this picture. Okay, they break into smaller streams, which is root like structure, and this entire stretch where this root like structure is formed is known as delta. Now what are estuaries? So estuaries is basically the meeting point of fresh water of the river. Rivers are always have fresh water, okay, but the water in the sea or the ocean is known as saline water, or you can say brackish water, okay, or fish water. So the point exactly where the fresh water meets the brackish water, or you can say the brackish water or the fish water or the saline water, is known as estuary. It's the meeting point. Now this is a very interesting fact. It says that on the western coast rivers form estuaries, however on the eastern coast it forms delta. Why is that happening? So on the western coast, when you move a little down in the peninsular India, there are a lot of ranges of mountains, which means the rivers are not getting enough space to spread out. Right from mountains, they are flowing down to the ocean. There's not enough space for them to form deltas. There's not enough space for them to spread out and form that delta. However, in the eastern side, that's not there. They have enough space to spread out, and that's why there are more deltas. Now, just because there is delta doesn't mean estuaries will not be there. Now, this is the most interesting fact that I personally feel is there, that if deltas is there, estuaries will still be there, guys, okay, which means on the eastern coast, however, we'll find more deltas, but estuaries are equally present. However, why? Because estuaries are basically the meeting point of the saline water and the fresh water, which has to be there in the eastern coast and the western coast. but because the mountains are directly, and because of the mountains there is not enough space for the rivers to form deltas, that's why deltas are missing in the western coasts, and we have only estuaries over there. Also, that brings me to one more interesting fact which I somewhat forgot to mention. The point where the tributaries meet their rivers, okay, the main rivers, is known as confluence. These are few terms which come, you will read a lot of times and may create confusion in your head. So I just quickly want to let you know, suppose let's say in the first picture, let's say here is a tributary meeting the main river. Then this point will be known as confluence. And with this we come to the last part, which is the compare and the contrast between the northern rivers and the southern rivers. So as I told you, the northern rivers, because originates from Himalayas, are snow fed and are perennial. Okay, however the southern rivers are dependent on monsoon. Now they bring a lot of fresh alluvium every year. This is basically the silt I just explained you about. From there they bring a lot of fresh alluvium, which ultimately forms the alluvial soil. Okay, that's there found in the plains, northern plains, and majorly there are further division which we'll discuss in types of soils ahead, but that is why alluvial soil is considered to be so fertile. However, in the southern rivers, fertile soils are found in smaller quantities near deltas, and small quantities near deltas. So near deltas you will find this. Why? Because again, deltas is stretching out. That's where whatever amount of silt it is carrying will get deposited over there. Plains are actually a result of deposition of the silts that the river brings. Okay. So the third and the final point is that northern rivers are good for irrigation as they flow through flat fertile plains. However, southern rivers are less suitable as they flow through rocky areas. If you remember, I told you there are a lot of mountains in the southern region as well. And with this, guys, we are done with the session today. Do tell me if this was helpful, and if you found a lot of interesting facts, don't forget to hit the like button. And let's have a quick look at the homework question. In which among the following ranges Mount Everest is located? Himadri, the Lesser Himalayas, the Shivalik range, or the Purvanchal? And with this, we are done with this session. As I told you, do tell me in the comment box if the session was helpful for you or not. If you think it was, also don't forget to hit the like button. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because next thing we are going to come with is the doubt and the mentee session. Don't forget to put your doubts in the comment section so that we can pick it up from there and address it during the doubts clearance. Okay, during the doubt clearing session. I will see you guys very soon in the other session. Till then, guys, take care, stay home, stay safe. Bye bye.